Having been a broker for so many years, there's not a week goes by someone doesn't want to consult with me about a short sale situation. We keep hearing all of the facts, the numbers, the statistics, but there's a human side to this, and nobody seems to be telling that story. Recently, I got a call from a homeowner right here in Hayward, Mr. Doug Grant. And unlike many people, Doug's actually willing to talk about his situation. Doug has really been so gracious, and that he's allowed us to interview and film exactly what his experience has been like.
Well, I'm Doug Grant, and I live in Hayward. And 12 years ago, I moved to Hayward into my house that I live in now. And I'm about to lose it. And I know it's gone, and I have nothing I can do about it. It's gone. So all I can do is occupy the bank. So that's what I'm doing. I'm occupying the bank right now. I'm negotiating to get as much as I can from that house. Through no fault of my own, I lost my job 7 years ago during the dot-com bust. And as a result of being out of work during that period of time, I accumulated debt, which I ended up rolling into my mortgage, refinanced, which was the wrong mistake because now I can't afford that loan. I could barely afford that loan when I got my new job. Within a year and a half, I had a job. But it didn't pay what I was making before. Now, if I were to retire tomorrow or in 6 months or a year, I won't be able to afford my house. It just dawned on me. I should have sold that house 6 years ago.
In your situation, so you accumulated some debt and you rolled it into a new loan. How difficult did they make it for you to get that new loan at the time?
That new loan was no problem. It was pretty simple to get that loan. I was making enough money. Like I said, I took a huge cut in salary, but I was able to afford the refi at about 6 3/4, which is a reasonable rate at that time. And although I could barely make the payments, just barely, but because of my retirement situation and how much money I've saved, which isn't enough, they always save 10. They say to save. They used to say save 10%. Mm-hmm. Well, they meant to say save 10% over and above your pension. When you're raising 3 kids, you don't have enough money to save the 10%, let alone over your pension. So anyway, long story short, the money I have saved is not enough to live according to the lifestyle I've become accustomed. And I realized this about 2 or 3 years ago, that I was in an unsustainable situation come retirement. When you're young, you don't think about retirement. When you get 60-ish, you think...
How old are you?
I'm 64.
Okay.
I'll be 65 in just about 6 months.
Okay.
So when you get this age, you start thinking, oh my God, I'm going to retire in a year or two. And 10 years out, it's still an eternity away. But so 2 or 3 years ago, it dawned on me that if I were to rely on my Social Security and my pensions, my 401ks, I don't have enough money to pay that new refinanced mortgage. And so here I am making the decision not to kick the can down the road anymore and face it head on. And I know I'm going to lose the house. There's nothing, from my experience in the last year and a half, I know the house is gone. So I just have to try and get as much equity as I can. At this point, I have no equity. I've lost $600,000 in equity in the last 7 years. From the time I lost my job in 2004 and having to refi and the housing crash, I've lost $600,000.
What does that feel like today as you sit and say that to another man, knowing that neither of us made the decisions? It was the rare person actually that made the decision and cashed in at the height of the market. 34 years doing this, I didn't see it coming. What's that feel like to sit here and say $600,000 gone?
I've kind of gotten over that, but it still hurts. I mean, the fact that I've lost everything, but I rationalize that I can rent an apartment for cheaper than my mortgage.
Right.
And why be tied down? I mean, I used to think, I'm going to make a lot of money owning houses and having apartments like, income property. Mm-hmm. And my objective when I was in my 30s, I wanted to become a millionaire and have a lot of houses and duplexes and fourplexes and apartment buildings. And I got tired of the dealing with renters. Uh-huh. So the money's gone. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to get as much as I can from the bank by negotiating, if I can. I know I'm up against a brick wall. I probably won't get anything. But if you don't ask, you won't get anything. If I do ask and I happen to get lucky, I might get some equity. Mm-hmm. So if I can get $100,000 or $200,000, It's not over until the fat lady sings. I will keep pushing the bank. I have occupied the bank, and I'm not going to give up.
Literally, you have?
And so this is sort of my mission from here on out. When I retire, I intend to organize kids and adults, but mostly kids. I want kids to find their voice and become activists. There are a certain number of kids that are born leaders, or at high school have the ability to lead, but they just need to have somebody give them that freedom. So I've got a couple ideas in mind to give them the ability to have a success in their own community, with billboards or with some very proactive legal avenues, and to really exercise their abilities and learn what they can do. Mm-hmm. So, I'm 64. Now I'm an activist after being a soccer dad my whole life.
But today's 64 literally is the new 40. I'm curious for you. You, at 64, you're obviously studied. The way that we met when I walk in your home, clearly you're not, and I said that to you, a lot of people that I talk to in the short sale situation, when they call me in, Doug, they have no clue. They finally, for many of these people, me being inside their home, between the husband and the wife, when I go through the values, while they do know it internally, it's often, my visit that they've invited me in, it's often the first time they acknowledge between the two of them, we're in black and white, they look at each other and they acknowledge we're upside down, we're in trouble. Right. Mm-hmm. Maybe sometimes they've like you, they're studied, many times they're not, and either way, as soon as they do the math, they go, this doesn't make any sense. My question to you is this, is you're going along in this as a studied person, and when I met you inside your house, you already know what short sales are at, what they're about, what they mean to your credit, what they mean to future purchases, how long does it take for credit. I'm curious for you, so one day you're going along and you hit that point and you go, this is it, I'm done. What research what was your first things that you did? Because you've heard the term short sale, but most people, that's where it starts there. I've heard the term, and now they start to do some research. What did you do? What did you find out?
The first thing I did was make some phone calls, and I didn't have a clue I didn't know how to negotiate this maze. The bank had several different departments. They had a short sale department. They had a making homes affordable department. They had a loan modification department. They had I don't even know the names anymore. I was keeping track for a while because I thought I might need to know that. And it turns out that the rules are changing and the departments are changing. And now instead of one guy talking to me, he's got to deal with, he's the negotiator. He's got to deal with the quality control person and the analyst person and the support person. And it takes him 2 weeks to push people around to get a consensus that they can give me something, whatever that might be. And when I started this process, that didn't exist. So in the span of 4 months, the process has changed. So to answer your question, I didn't have a clue what was going on. And only through talking with the short sale person, the representative of that short sale department, did I learn that I could go to a website and read about it. Because it's buried in their website, unless you really research. I suppose I could have found it if I knew what I was looking for, but if you don't know what you're looking for, how are you going to find it?
I agree.
So it's asking, any negotiation is just basically asking questions. They tell you in a negotiation, don't tell the other side what your position is, because you never know, they might give you more than you want, more than you deserve. But the essence of negotiation is basically listen to what they have to say and then take that information and use that. So it's really difficult when you're up against this process to put your emotions aside and just listen. So what I learned was about short sale was basically serendipitous. Sometimes you just have to hear the right word and take that word and move on it. So it wasn't any research that I did other than read the website that they sent me to.
Did you feel the people that you talked to had your best interest at heart? Were they really trying to help you? Or were they by rote going, yep, I got another customer number 943. Oh yeah, that's right, your name was Doug. I'm sorry, to me you were customer 4. Is it lunchtime yet? Yeah. And I listen, we didn't get that yet. And I have clients with documented clients that they can show, look, I've got 9 certified letter receipts that bank did get this. I've got the emails, I got this, and here's the bank telling me they didn't get it. one of the articles that I'm writing is, I feel that I gave my freaking heart and soul to the American dream. And I swear to God, Doug, I gave you America, whatever it is. I'm the 14-hour-a-day guy. I've done this business 35 years, since 21. I am a dyed-in-the-wool, hate to say it, workaholic. I believed this was going somewhere.
Now, the American dream is, I think, essentially not sustainable. The 1% hold out this carrot and make you think, whether you're a plumber or a carpenter or got a small business changing tires and mufflers or whatever it is, they put this out there that you can become a millionaire too. They give you the tax breaks or whatever, and they give you the illusion that you're going to make it big having your own business. And then what happens is, and I'm not a small businessman at all, I've been in working for corporations my entire life, but thinking that if I just keep getting those raises and doing a good job and getting more money and getting that house, and the house is building equity, that this is the American dream. But I'm just accumulating more stuff on credit because I can't afford it because I've got 3 kids and my income really isn't paying for it. The American dream was that, yes, I made enough money on my own that my wife could take care of the kids. On the other hand, I wasn't home to enjoy the kids myself. I was busting my butt for the corporation, which did not have any loyalty to me.
Yeah, because if at the end of the day, if the trade-off, which many of us adult males have made throughout history, we traded the time at home and with our kids and our wives because we bought into that American dream.
Yeah.
Many of us did it because we thought, nobody did this for me, but I'm going to be the dad that leaves my children with degrees, with opportunity, with equity, with something out of a will that might help even my grandkids. And a lot of us, I know because of my friends and your friends, is they're telling me, wow, the men particularly, and not saying that the women, some women have not felt that, a lot of women, but a lot of men that I know right now, they're like, I just threw my whole life away. What just happened right there? 25, 30 years I committed to somebody who along the way, people made millions, even billions. And at the end of the day, they're gone down the road. And here I am with an overmortgaged home because of my age, regardless of my education and my actual, true, valuable job skills. Nobody even wants to hire me. Matter of fact, they'll take a 25-year-old, maybe even pay him the same rate they'll pay me.
Exactly.
And I'm irritated. I'm angry over it.
So at age 64, I'm looking at my grandkids thinking they almost look like my kids. Mm-hmm. So as a grandparent, I can go enjoy my grandkids, whereas I didn't enjoy my own kids. So at least I have another chance at that. Mm-hmm. The fact that the powers that be hold out this, or the systems put this, not the powers that be, that's a cliche, but the people that lead us to believe that we have this American dream, and it's easy to buy into because when you get a raise and now you're making $20,000. Wow, I never thought I'd make $20,000 before. Man, I'm big time now, right? And then you make $24,000. Pretty soon you're making $30,000. You really think, and this is a long time ago. This is before you were born. You buy into it. This is nice. You're making a lot of money. You have some discretionary income, but just the cost of raising a family is more than that $30,000. And so you start getting into the credit routine and buying the toys and the bicycles and things. There's nothing against that. It's just that we need to be saving 20%, not 10% for our retirement. And people didn't make that clear to me that, they did say save 10%, but it was 10% over and above what the company was saving away for you. Don't rely on the company.
Well, the model they rolled out for us might not have been a practical model. And I don't know whether the insiders knew that or didn't. So you're along the way here. You realize something's got to change. For most of us, the first thing we realize to do is to look at a loan modification. So I assume you didn't just decide to short sell a house. You must have first at least looked at a loan modification, did you?
Initially, when I made the first call, they turned me over to a group of people someplace in this world who didn't speak with my kind of accent. And they asked me a lot of questions, just kind of going down the list. How much do you make? What are your expenses for this? And kind of went down the list of income. And
you're talking to them regarding loan modification, short sale, or you're not sure what you're talking about?
I wasn't sure what I was involved. It was called HAFA.
And you're just calling the lender and raising a hand and saying help.
And this was basically, They initiated this without my knowing. This is like the second call maybe. And I didn't have a clue what the process was or what the options were. But they steered me over to this one group that started me asking me questions and were guiding me through the loan app or the modification app, whatever it was. And it turned out, long story short, that I got a letter back denying me because basically I made enough money that this 31% hurdle was working against me. I made enough money they couldn't really give me a reduction. Couldn't modify my loan. So I failed that, and I didn't know what to do. So after I don't know, a couple months of stewing over it or talking to people or trying to figure it out, I finally was told that I could get somebody's attention if I hypothetically missed a payment or two and hypothetically went into default, and on the 62nd day somebody would listen to me, hypothetically. So I did that, and I started getting phone calls, and they started offering me all kinds of solutions, which I still don't exactly know where I was in the process. But they seemed to be legitimately concerned about getting me to the right place. I just didn't know where I was going. I got a negotiator assigned to me, and which was really strange. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I wrote them the letter of hardship, and gave them the list of expenses. And they canceled me. It was like on a Monday morning. I just sent them in my fax with my expenses after working it through with my wife. And when they called and talked to me and asked me for the list of expenses, they didn't give me a deadline. So it was a Thursday night. I said, let me go home and work on it with my wife. And over the weekend I did. Monday morning, right almost within an hour of my sending the fax in, I got a call or something, I guess it was a call, saying that they had canceled me because they couldn't communicate with me. So I started my letter campaign, showing them that I had called. I gave them records of my phone calls on my iPhone, gave them screen prints from my iPhone showing me the calls, and the couple calls that they did make, I did respond to, and that there were no other calls. It wasn't that they couldn't find me. I was there. They just canceled me. So that was the loan modification, which I am now repeating. And after 4 months, by the way, I was attached to a person in the bank's customer advocacy group in the office of the president and CEO, and getting very good service, very personal attention. And they offered me, after 4 months, a $155 reduction in my payment, which doesn't solve the problem.
No.
So now I've given that up, and I've gone into the short sale because that's really the only avenue that I have other than foreclosure. Now that's when I learned that there's 3 different kinds of short sale, which I didn't know about 1 week ago. So every day is a learning experience. I have no idea where this roadmap has taken me.
And I don't know that anybody does. And I would hope that you get that when you list your house with me, that I'm going to be on a similar road with you, that I cannot tell you, regardless of all the short sales that I've successfully closed. I also would have to tell you there's a bunch I didn't get anywhere either. And where banks they lose the records that we send them, like you. You're one of the rare ones, by the way. If you really tracked...
No, they have my records. They've been scanned into their computer.
But you know what I'm saying? Where when you talk with them, they're like, we didn't get that. And you're like, I've got proof in front of me. Here, stay by your computer. What email are you at? They don't even want to hear it sometimes. And I seem to sense that there is almost a... Let's go to the part here. Somebody stops making the payment on their home. Often that's with the advice of an attorney or a CPA, by the way. Because as a real estate broker, I do not give legal, I do not give tax advice. I am never going to tell somebody in a short sale situation to stop making your payment.
I was told by a person at the bank to stop making my payment.
And I believe that. Because they do that. And they say, you're not going to get our attention.
Hypothetically.
Yeah, hypothetically. But what I do is when I have a client that doesn't know where they stand, and you can tell within a couple of minutes of chatting with them, it's best to say, let's have you go talk to an attorney and or CPA so that we can be sure that you understand what the heck you're doing here. But once we get them on the road that we go, selling the home on a short sale makes sense, and the client gets that. They've talked to an attorney, they've talked to a CPA, their financial planner. Everybody has said, yeah, this is the only thing that makes any sense. So we start to go forward. One of the things that we're finding as a real estate company is there's not a heck of a lot of compassion on the other side of this. And here's what we know. when the clients have gone to those attorneys and they stop making the payment because they simply want the bank's attention. The attention they get often, not always, is negative attention. It's been turned over to another department, collections. They may have another name for it, but collections, loss mitigation, I don't know. But those people actually, and I hear this from client after client, not all the time, but that it's not somebody following up to see how you're doing, where you're at. It's almost a put down, where's the money? How come you can't write a check? Can you go borrow the money from your 401k, a friend, a relative, etc.? And I've had people tell me that they've told the lender, are you kidding? How do you think I made the payments for the last year? And they've tapped 401ks. If they had bought gold or silver, they've sold it off. They've borrowed from mom and dad or brother, sister, whomever, and now they've exhausted those resources. So my question, I guess, all of that, what am I asking? I'm asking you, do you feel that the standard of honest human concern from the people representing the banks was there? Or did you feel, was it false concern or was it no concern? What was your experience?
Actually, I've been dealing with two sets of people. The people that have been doing the loan mod or the short sale, the people within the office of the president and CEO, customer advocacy, and that's one group. And I've been also dealing with the group that calls in from Costa Rica. And this is their job, and I knew I couldn't get mad at them, but I at least I explained to them, I said, look, I'm in the process of loan modification right now. I'm dealing with this person, his name is so-and-so Jimenez, and I'm in the process of going through this loan modification. I'm into it like a month now already. So please don't call me. You don't need to call me and ask me my address and how much I'm making. Is my mortgage the same amount? And nothing has changed. I'm not making any payments. And I recognized that a couple of times I got calls, and these are like a couple days in succession, 2 or 3 days chronologically in succession. And finally they would not call me back. But usually I think the reason they called me back was because I didn't let them finish their script. So they had to finish their script. They're paid to do this.
Could you feel they were scripting you?
Oh yeah, it was scripted. Uh-huh. It was the same questions every time. Mm-hmm. And so I know it was scripted. And I realized that the reason they're calling me back is I'm cutting them off. So on the third time, I would go through the whole process and I would just answer the questions and I'd let them finish the script. This went on for about 3 or 4 months. Now, at one point, I got a person who I think they turned me over to sort of the next level. Maybe they have different levels of trainee 1, trainee 2, supervisor, whatever.
Yeah. Oops, educated customer. Give that to Bill.
Yeah. So I got this one woman who, and once I explained to her what was going on, the phone calls sort of tapered off. And eventually I complained to this person who's sort of my watchdog in the office of the president and CEO, who said, if anything goes wrong, give me a call. So I called her and I said, you know what, I just got off the phone with this person in Costa Rica. And I explained to them, you have 2 groups within your organization, within the bank, who are not talking to each other. And I asked them, they have access to your computer system. So why don't they look at the computer system and see the fact that I'm communicating with you for this loan modification and not give me a call? You know what? The phone call stopped. I've not heard from them for 2 months.
Interesting.
So you got to get into the office of the president and CEO's customer advocacy group.
That's the rare individual, though. You know that.
You write a letter to the CEO. Just write a letter to the CEO. Just saying,
the fact that you've done the research, the fact that you're even in the office of the president, you're not mom and pop America, which is why it was important to talk to you, to go, because you're
they need to know this.
I agree with you 100%. In your head at some point previous to any of your personal situation, did you talk with your wife? Did you guys have conversation that said, oh yeah, this is getting out of hand, or did it catch you by surprise?
I'd been unemployed for about 1.5 years, and I had at that point sent about 35 letters to my current employer, applying for 35 different jobs, and I had gotten a couple of interviews, and I was very close to my final interview and a job offer, which led to a job where I started, that was October. I started in the middle of December at my new job. So I was at the point where I was overcoming 1.5 years of unemployment, not concerned about bubbles.
At all?
Bubbles? Nah. Okay. However, being unemployed, maybe I should have been smart enough to realize that maybe I should be moving out of this house, but we're all in denial. And I was in denial even after I got my job and realized how low the salary was going to be, half what I was making before. I was in denial, thinking that I could still come back. I had the hope that I could still make enough money. I was going to move up through the organization. You know what? At age 57, 58, it didn't work that way. So basically, I've spent the last 5-6 years just coasting. I don't want to say, getting my regular increases because I'm represented by a union, starting at the bottom of my pay grade. I'm the oldest guy in my department, making the least amount of money. Realizing that, okay, this is just the way it's going to end. My last job is not going to be a superstar. I'm going to be the least educated, not the least educated, but the least informed within that organization. And I'll just do the best I can and get as much as I can for my retirement. Seriously, 5 years away from retirement, and I got to be serious about this. I wasn't looking at a bubble, and it wasn't until probably 2 or 3 years after that, in 2008, when really the bubble popped, that I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? I really have an unsustainable situation here. I can't afford this house. I should have sold it 3 years ago. No, I didn't recognize the bubble.
Right today, if you had a son and he was in his 30s and he was thinking about buying and he was renting right now, would you tell him you should act now, or would you say no, things are still not quite there, you need to hold off?
They always say we tend to buy stocks when they're on the way up and we miss the market. You can't really plan to buy at the bottom and sell at the top. We're always kind of in denial at both ends of this thing. So generally I would say, yeah, now's the time. Take a chance. Nothing's for certain, but I would advise my kids to actually one already owns a house, but the other one, buy now. And if the worst happens, I mean, everybody's in the same pot.
All my friends, associates, clients, etc., we're sitting here and we're worrying. Many of us have fear. We're struggling under stress, and a heck of a lot of us, if we're not losing sleep completely, we're certainly not getting a good night's sleep. And I want to ask, did you go through any of that emotional thing, or has it just been black and white for you the whole way?
No, actually, when I was unemployed, I'd been unemployed about 6 months. And typical for me, I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning worrying about losing my house. I tried a couple of things. I was fortunate. The first 30 days of my unemployment, I was on my job looking for another job there just in case the guys needed some help. I was paid to just sit there and look for a job. And so I had something to work on for about 3 months right out of the chute, and it turned out not to work out. It was a technical problem with some software. And I realized I can't just fiddle around with this. I've got to get a real job. So I went out looking to job fairs and whatnot, interviews. And it was during that period of time when you start thinking, oh my God, I don't have anything. I'm not even working on that project, which wasn't going anywhere anyway. So I'd lay awake at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd plug in my little earbuds and listen to the radio station. NPR has some nice talk shows at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That'll keep you awake until 5.
It was really interesting. One night I didn't go to sleep the rest of the night. It was so interesting. It changed my life. Actually, it was because of that I took a different direction in my job search, and I did not go after a business as usual job. I went after something in the environmental field, and over the next year, actually the next 6 months, I tried to figure out what I could do, and it took me 6 months to actually find the job, and it ended up with a job at the Cal EPA Air Resources Board, which it's the perfect job. I mean, to end my career, I'm actually doing constructive things environmentally.
Very good.
So reducing diesel pollution and CO2 emissions. So it was every time I've lost a job, I've ended up in a better situation. This was a case in point. 2 o'clock in the morning, worrying about losing my house. Still, when I got the job, I was in denial. I should have sold the house. I should have read your newsletter.
Yeah.
I remember reading that newsletter, but it was like, that's not me. I got other things to worry about, like getting a job. So, it's kind of like when you're overwhelmed, you just got to pick your priorities.
We had at the top end of the market, you know Hayward pretty well, so you know by Kaiser Hospital, the neighborhood we call Palmacia. At the top of the market, I was selling those for the mid 5s to low 6s. And I'll never forget talking to people over there who had bought these homes for $20,000 and $30,000, mom and pop America, original owners.
Right.
They didn't, matter of fact, the original owners paid $14,000, $15,000.
Yeah.
I'm telling them, you know, you could sell this right now for $600,000. And people would tell me, I'm not selling until I can get $750,000.
Yeah,
Bring me
I know.
$750,000 for 1,128 square foot
We're
slag
greedy.
floor.
We're greedy.
Yeah, we made some
Human
big
nature. We're
mistakes there.
greedy. We want more.
In the last minutes here, my question for you is this: here's what I seem to find the two biggest mistakes homeowners are making right now is they are completely ignoring the problem, or they acknowledge the problem and they're simply not taking action. If you were advising mom and pop America who are behind on the payment, or somehow miraculously they're making it, but net, they're going in the hole every month because they're borrowing it against savings from mom, pop, they're doing without life or whatever, what would your advice be to somebody that, say, let's take it to make it the numbers be real. Let's say if we're in Hayward and you have a home that you paid $600,000 for 5 years ago. Let's say you put 20% down, so you put 120 hard cash down and took a 480 mortgage, but the house is worth $300,000 today. And let's say you're 45, 50 years old. What would you do? Can't afford the payment.
Well, that's the clincher. If you can't afford the payment, if you could afford the payment, and you weren't behind in everything, you had refinanced and gotten your debt up, I would say treat it as a house. It's your home. Forget about it as an investment.
Good point.
So you can afford the payment. This is the payment. That's what it is. You make the payment. Now, if your payment's too high, you just don't like making that payment, I would say rent. I was in a situation where I could cut my payment in half by renting a house someplace else, maybe not in that neighborhood, maybe in that neighborhood, because my mortgage was so high. If you can't afford the payment, it's not sustainable. You can't live that. You got to get out.
And you're ultimately, so I'm hearing you say, you're digging a hole you're not going to get out of, so stop digging.
You got to stop digging. If you're in a negative situation, the gal I was just talking to down at Occupy Hayward, that's where she was. Somebody gave her a mortgage which was unsustainable, and she was digging a hole every month, and she just had to stop digging. You got to get out. If it's unsustainable.
And she did?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. And she's now got a 2% loan. Her mortgage has been cut in half from $2,400 a month to $1,200 a month, including taxes and taxes and property tax and
insurance.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, including property tax and insurance. Her payment's been cut in half from $2,400 to $1,200 a month.
So would it be fair to say the worst mistake that anybody's making, because I said the two big mistakes that I see is, number one, people are just ignoring the problem, period. That's a big mistake. And number two, I see that they acknowledge the problem. They've already done the research. They've looked at their budget. They know they're in trouble, and they're not taking action. And if they would simply go online, get on the phone, talk to a counselor, talk to a neighbor, somebody who's already been down the process, they could lift the weight of the world off of their shoulders with just a couple of meetings, a couple of phone calls. At least they'd know where they're at.
Yeah. No, sometimes we're too proud to do that, or we don't know where to go. We don't know that our neighbors have the same problem. We need to get to know our neighbors more. That's the other thing. In this society, we've pretty much isolated ourselves. I know a few people on my block, but not as really friends. We need to get back to having a community in our neighborhood and talk about these things. I mean, if I had known somebody on my block, I could have maybe learned something. But we have egos and we want to do it ourselves. And we don't want to show that we're in a problem. I'm a success story. I am a success story, and I'm a failure at the same time. I'm a victim of this system, and that's why I consider myself one of the 99%. We're all in the same boat.
We are both in that same boat. Okay.
Yeah, look for somebody to give you some advice.
Okay, Doug, I really appreciate that you would take the time to share your message, and I hope it helps a lot of other
My
people.
pleasure. Thanks.
Okay.